What's up, Holy Grit fam?
Hello, hello.
How are y'all this week? How are you this week?
I'm okie dokie.
Okie dokie. All right.
It's a phrase I don't say often. See what happens when I get a pair of Crocs? I just turned it into you.
You turned into a white dad. Okie dokie. Oh, man, that's great. That's great. Well, how's life been this week?
It's been busy. How about you?
We're always busy, but hey, school's out for summer. Kind of. I thought maybe I was going to have some summers off, when I joined the SRO thing, and yeah, that's not happening.
What's your world turned into now that school's out?
Well, I have a couple days off. I guess Monday's a holiday. Is it Memorial Day? What day is it?
It's Memorial Day.
I don't even know. My life's all jacked up. So Memorial Day, and then I have training all next week, and then I have 2 weeks of summer school that I'm working, which was kind of funny because my boss was like, hey, do you want to work any summer school? And I'm like, yeah, so just put me wherever you need me, try to be, just like, yeah, if you need me. Because last year I worked 3 days of it. I got 2 weeks of it this week. So I'm at so summer school for 2 weeks, and then after that, the patrol shifts have training that they have to go to. So I'll be covering patrol for a couple days, for 2 days 1 week and 2 days the next week. And so I'm going back to night shift for a couple days. I'm not looking forward to that at all.
It's hard to adjust, even though a night shift was always your favorite.
It is, but it's going to be a rough 2 days.
Yeah, to readjust.
Yeah, for sure. So that being said, and then directly after night shift, Austin has all-star baseball, and I'm assistant coach with that. And so no sleep for Joshy here. So it's all right though. And then, so June's pretty much a bust. No, not much time off in June. And then July, we have a conference in Dallas, and which is kind of a funny story. Probably one of those you had to be there. So I was talking to Pastor Elmer last night at church, and somebody mentioned they were going to Texas. I was like, I'll be going to Texas in July. I'm going to Grapevine for a conference. And Elmer's like, oh, yeah, I used to live in Grapevine. He said, you should really stay at the Gray Wolf Lodge. And I'm like, that's where I'm staying. But all the people in our group didn't hear Gray Wolf Lodge. They heard Great Wall of Fudge. And so they were like, what's the Great Wall of Fudge? And we're like, what? What are you talking about? Seriously, 4 people heard Great Wall of Fudge. I don't know. It was really funny. So yeah. But yeah, so I have a couple
That's right
weeks
by
on.
Our office. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, where my work is.
The Great Wall of Fudge is?
Yes, it's just right down the road. I have to pass it to get to our office.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it's a really nice place.
You should go see Uncle Skipper while you're there.
If I have time.
He's pretty cool. Are you driving? Or are you flying?
We're flying.
Oh, you probably have time.
We're flying, but I'm kind of like, should I rent a car?
Uncle Skipper is about 45 minutes away from there.
Because I want to go see some other things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go see Fort Worth. I want to go see the stockyards. I've never been there. I always want to go there and go have me a big old juicy steak at the stockyards.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of meat in Texas.
Yeah.
Lots. But I've eaten at the stockyards.
I want to go eat at the stockyards. I've always wanted to see it. I have lots of friends that have been there, and they go down there every year for some sort of cowboy thing. And anyways, I've always wanted to see it. Never been. So, but that's enough about me.
What was that all about?
I got an email. Anyways, so what about you? How have you been? What are you doing?
Well, it's just kind of been a crazy week. Yeah, it's been a crazy week. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm happy that school's out. It's nice having Zoe and the kids and being able to see everybody. And but work's been super busy. I feel like I'm so far behind I can't catch up. I'm so far behind I'm in front. Isn't that how that goes?
No.
No. What is that? I can't do cliches. What's the cliche?
I don't even know why you try anymore.
Well, what is it? I'm so far behind, I feel like I'm in front. Isn't that what it is?
If it is, I've never heard it. Oh. Okie dokie. All right.
Oh, my words.
You said it.
I know, but I'm so sad I didn't.
Got a pair of Crocs. Now she's turned into a white dad. Okie dokie, Buster.
Oh, my word, this day.
That's so funny.
It's so early. That's probably what's wrong with us.
I love it. I love it. All right, so let's get into it, I guess. Last week we talked about a really tough time in your life.
Yes.
Right? And now we're going to continue talking about tough times in your life, right? And we're gonna talk about your crash and stuff today.
Yeah.
And so this is I've heard you talk about this crash and different things and how it's affected you 6 million times. But it always gets me. And I guess probably because I was there and I lived through it with you, kind of, maybe.
You did.
And so maybe that's why it affects me a little differently. I don't know. But I've heard you say, tell your story 100,000 times for real. And it always gets me. But sometimes your whole life changes right in the blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. Right? Or in the crash of a moment. This week, you're not just hearing a story. You're stepping into one. So we're gonna discuss it today. Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.
Are you gonna cry?
Depending on what stories you tell today. Depends. I might tear up a little bit.
I might tear up a little bit.
So the crash that changed everything. So kind of tell us about when, where, why, who, all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's crazy because in that moment of time, there's just certain things that you can remember. Yeah. And you remember them so well. Like, I still remember what clothes I wore to work that day. I still remember conversations that were had. But it just kind of sticks out and stays in your mind. But it did change everything. And, what we kind of talked about in the last podcast is that after everything had happened with Joe, my life just kind of completely was very unshaken. Was very shaken. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Okie dokie. Sorry.
But I was really running from God at that point. And I didn't want to have anything to do with God. I didn't want to be feeling the way that I was feeling. And so I was truly just running away. And I know that that's what I was doing. I can remember, I bought my car. And it was a brand new car. It was the first brand new car I had ever bought on my own. It was a car that nobody else helped me with. I went and signed my life up into debt for the next 5 years. It was me.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of that car. I loved the color of it. I loved everything. I left the car dealership and went and bought fingernail polish to match it. That just tells you what I loved about it. And I was so excited, and it was a 5-speed because I wanted to hear it go zoom, zoom. I thought that was cool. So I was really excited about it. So my friends.
Are you going to tell us what kind of car it was?
It was a Ford Probe.
There you go.
Was that necessary? Does that make an impact?
Listen, we have like 74% men listening to our podcast.
Okay. It's a Ford Probe.
They're going to want to know what kind of car it was. Okay. All right. Continue.
Okay. So I got my car and I was super excited about it. But, I would look at that car and I'm not even kidding you. And something in the back of my head would be like, that car is going to be the death of you. But in my brain, I kept saying to myself, because of them car payments, because it was a higher car payment than anything else that I've experienced. So that's what my brain kept telling me, But I can remember every time I would look at it, it was like that car was telling me that car's going to be death of you. And I might say that because I would look at it every time I'd go out that apartment door. That would be the thought that went through my mind. But it almost was. So on this particular day, it was May 11th.
Technically, it was.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. So it was May 11th, 1996, 29 years ago this month. And I had went to a concert with some of my friends, and I had followed my friend. So we went from Versailles, Missouri to Columbia. And at Columbia, we stopped with Shakespeare's Pizza, which, by the way, is phenomenal pizza. In case y'all want to know, they've got like another 47-year lease, so you can always go out there and have some. It's going to be around for a while. I just read that in the paper not long ago. But so we stopped.
So if you're listening, Shakespeare Pizza, we would love for you to sponsor us. Along with Bang energy drinks,
Stanley Cups.
Apple products. What else we got? We didn't even.
You didn't even acknowledge our fancy dancy sign.
Look at that thing. Man, we're ADD this morning. It's fine. Look at that fancy thing. How cool is that? Custom to our logo. You did good.
We're fancy.
We are.
We're fancy.
Anyways, so Shakespeare's Pizza.
Go
for it.
And then we stopped at a place called the Blue Note. Now, we were super excited about the Blue Note because we had heard this band that was like playing on the radio. And, you know, usually anybody that's ever played in music has probably at some point played at the Blue Note. You know, it's kind of a cool kind of a place. It's kind of that. How would you describe it? Because you played there.
I have. I mean, it's like Willie Nelson's played there. John Mayer's played there. I think the Rolling Stones played there one time, a long time ago.
Yeah. It's that kind of place.
It's just a cool place. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went to go be able to hear some music, and we were laughing, dancing, no alcohol, no drugs, just a group of friends all going to hang out. And then we started our drive back home. And the first half of the drive is easy. It's all interstate. But the second half of the drive, it's Highway 5 South. And Highway 5 South is hilly, windy, and crooked all the way from Boone County straight down past Morgan County. And so as we were driving, my friend who was in the first car, they were able to see a vehicle coming toward them. And so those two cars just kind of like completely sideswiped each other. But, you know, normally, and Mr. Policeman, officer, law enforcement dude, but normally when you get into a car wreck, what are you supposed to do? Stop. You know, you stop, you check on people, make sure everybody's okay. This guy did not stop. Instead, he kept on driving. Now, according to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, when he hit the first car, he was going approximately 75 miles per hour. By hitting that car, it actually slowed him down. But he kept driving on the wrong side of the road, going down a hill, around a curve, until he hit me on what they considered a nearly head-on collision. And from that crash, I had many, many injuries. Thankfully, you weren't with me that night. I was a single mom trying to raise you. You were at your dad's house. And I was supposed to pick you up the following morning because we were going to go to Nana and Pop's house, or Nana and Papa's house. So on that day, though, is when my world completely stopped. And it's crazy because I can still remember the song playing in the car radio when the impact of the crash took place. And that happened to be Gangster's Paradise.
Coolio.
Yes. So when that impact took place, we hit so hard, and the impact was such a hard impact that it actually spun me around and put me in the ditch in the exact opposite direction of the road that I was originally traveling. And from that crash, I had many, many, many injuries. Both of my ankles were broken. I have wires and screws in both of my ankles. My left thigh bone was broken. I have metal rod from my knee to my hip. My pelvic was broken on the right and the left side. I have screws on both sides of my pelvic. My right forearm, both of these bones were completely shattered. I don't know if you can see the scarring from them, but I have metal plates and screws in both of them. I also had 4 broken ribs. So that was my external injuries. You know, if you guys start talking about somebody with a loose screw, I get a little nervous. I've had a loose screw before.
Yeah.
I've had 2.
Yeah.
ankle and wrist.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Don't quit your day job.
Hey, I am a comedian. I am funny. You need to understand I am stinking hilarious. I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I am funny.
Go for it.
Internally, though, it was much, much worse. My liver was lacerated, my gallbladder, my appendix, my spleen, part of my small intestines all had to be removed. Both of my lungs were completely collapsed. I was placed on a ventilator. You can see the ugly little tracheotomy scar right there. But the most catastrophic thing that happened to me is due to the impact of the crash, we hit so hard that it ripped the aorta heart valve away from my heart. And at the age of 22, I was taken in for open heart surgery. And during that surgery, I was bleeding to death on the operating table. The doctors told me that he lost count on how many times he had to resuscitate me to bring me back. So,
really, the car was the death of you.
it really was. So, the doctors did the only thing that they could do to be able to save my life, and they shut off the blood supply to my lower extremities, thus causing me to be a T6 paraplegic. What that means is I'm paralyzed about 2 inches above my belly button all the way down. I can't move anything. However, I'm a freak of nature. Apparently, there's only like a handful of people like me in the entire world that can't move anything. However, I can feel everything. I can feel when a fly lands on my leg, or if a mosquito's biting me, or if that dog wants to try to lick my toes, which is nasty. Nasty. Can't stand it when an animal licks my feet.
You bought the dog.
It's nasty. I don't let him lick it. It's not like I'm like, hey, go ahead and lick my feet. Nasty.
Okay.
Okay. Why are you laughing at that?
I don't know. It's just funny. Anyways, go ahead.
So, I can feel everything though, which that's a blessing and sometimes not a blessing because, like I can feel, so therefore, it's good because at least I don't get like sores and I know when I have pain, I know when I need to move my legs. So it keeps me from, otherwise, sometimes paralyzed people have those type of issues. So that's a good thing. But it's also a bad thing because it means I can feel.
Yeah.
When you were real little, do you remember when I spilled bacon grease on my lap?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was frying up that bacon because we were having company and I was frying up a bunch of bacon. And then you know how when you fry that bacon, it gets like a lot of grease. So I went to go pour out the grease. And when I did, my pan turned over and it all spilled directly into my lap.
Yeah.
I felt that.
Yeah.
So here I am, 33 total surgeries now. And
How many times have you broken your leg since the wreck?
3 times.
3 times? Yeah. So you felt every single bit of that?
Every time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt, I could feel my bones rub together, the last one.
Yeah.
Which is gross.
Very much so.
So I can feel it.
Yeah.
And don't you have like some scriptures or something you're supposed to be reading by now?
Well, I mean, we have a bunch of different stuff. So that's kind of your accident, right? Mm-hmm. So when did you first realize, talk about the first time you realized you were paralyzed? Like where you first just, oh my word, I have no movement of my legs.
It's kind of crazy because the very first time, or when I went into the hospital after all the surgeries, I went into a coma, and I stayed in that coma for almost 4 weeks. And during that time, it was like I was just asleep. Now, coming out of the coma was an entirely different thing because have you ever watched a hot air balloon land?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, well, maybe not even a person, maybe on TV or whatever. But when a hot air balloon lands, it kind of comes down and it touches the ground, and then it kind of bounces back up and touches the ground again, and then it kind of bounces back up until it finally sits on the ground and kind of stays. For me, that's probably the best way to describe coming out of that coma, because it was like I would kind of wake up and I could realize things that were happening around me, but then I would float back off into my sleep and then kind of wake up again, so coming back out of that, because I had been in a coma for so long, my muscles and my body was so weak that my very first physical therapy exercise was making my fingertip touch my thumb. And even, when the nursing in the hospital, they to call a nurse light, and you have to hit that button, I was so weak I couldn't hit it. They had to have like a touch pad for me. Did you know that? Mm-mm. Because my muscles were so weak, I couldn't even push that button. So for me, not being able to move my legs and not being able to move, my whole entire body was like that. So it wasn't like I just had this rude awakening that was like, oh, I can't move my legs. I didn't have that type of a sensation because I couldn't move anything. Like I had no strength, no nothing. But as I started getting stronger and I started kind of doing things like this, in my brain, I just kept telling myself, it's okay. It's going to be fine because I'm going to be able to get some physical therapy. My grandfather had went through a stroke. I watched him go through physical therapy and be able to regain some of the use. So I just kept thinking, it's fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I don't remember who it was that actually told me that I was paralyzed. I don't even remember who it was. I just knew that I was. But that wasn't really the biggest obstacle at that time. The hardest thing for me to be able to do is I was placed on a ventilator. I had life support. I had machines that were breathing for me. And I had been on that for almost 6 weeks. And coming away from that was by far the hardest challenge that I had. And let me tell you why. Your body, the reason they don't try to keep you on ventilators for any length of time is because your bodies get used to it. It gets, you just become that habit. And so I can remember as I was first coming out of that coma, and the crazy thing is I can still see that nurse's face as plain as day. And that nurse had told me, Phaedra, stop fighting it. You have to have that to survive. That's breathing for you. So I kind of calmed down and I realized, and I could look across the room and I had like this machine with like this like accordion like thing that was pumping up and down. And I could, I watch enough TV and I know that everything I watch on TV is true. So I knew that was one of those things that was keeping me alive. I could figure that out. And so as you lay there, it's the craziest thing ever to be not having to even control your breathing. And that's something that our body does naturally. It's not like we go, okay, let's take a breath now. And, our bodies just breathe on their own. But in my case, I wasn't. I was no longer breathing on my own. This machine was doing it for me. I kind of think I got so lazy I didn't have to worry about it. Now, being in that hospital, it's a university hospital, so it's a learning center. And I felt like I always had like 1 or 2 doctors come in and then like 4 or 5, 6 students come into my room all the time. And when they would come in like that, they would come into my room, they would kind of surround my bed and they would talk about my case. They never looked like at me. They were never talking to me. They were talking about me. And of course, when you have a tracheotomy, you can't speak. My body couldn't move. Like I said, I couldn't even make my fingertips touch my thumb. So therefore, I was just laying there. I get why they weren't talking to me because I guess they didn't think my brain was turned on, I guess. I don't know. But they weren't speaking to me. And I remember that doctor saying that day, we're going to turn off the machine. Now, again, I can't scream. I can't yell. I can't speak. I can't move my hands. I can't move my legs. I can't move my body. I'm laying in this bed. What do you think was going through my brain? Again, I watch TV, and I know everything I watch on TV is true. So what do you think was going through my brain?
Don't do it.
Because I'm alive in here.
Right.
I really did. I thought I was dying. Why are you checking your phone in the middle of my podcast?
Well, because I have things going on today. Go ahead.
Rude.
It's not rude.
It is rude.
Is it? I'm sorry. If I was rude, I apologize.
Why are you apologizing to them? You should apologize to me. I'm your
I
mama.
was trying to make it really sincere.
About your eyes.
Sorry. All right, go for it. Sorry.
So, coming off this machine,
Yeah.
it was the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. I mean, truly the hardest thing I've ever had to learn to do was to breathe on my own. So this nurses come in later on and they're like cleaning me up and freshening my sheets, and they were talking about a birthday party, and they're having this conversation. Again, no one speaks to me. And I remember just laying in this bed and I kept thinking to myself, I was like, okay, where's my family? Aren't they all supposed to be in here because I'm about to die? And are they supposed to be in here like mourning and weeping over me? Where are people? That was the important thing. I needed to know people were going to mourn because I'm dying. Where are these people? And no one was in there. And just as casually can be, they turned off that machine. And when they turned off that machine, I could feel myself stopping breathing. My breaths that were deep and not labored at all eventually just became short, fast, very labored, and very difficult to breathe. And I could even begin to hear my body gurgle. The only way that I can describe that is, do you know what it's like when you have a brat person and they come up to you and they hold your head underwater in a swimming pool and they say, I'm going to dunk you, and they hold you there? Do you remember that feeling? What do? I mean, your instincts.
You freak out.
You want to kick, you want to fight, you want to do whatever it takes to be able to swim back up to the top to catch that breath. But in this case, in this situation, I didn't have a pool. I didn't have a way to be able to swim back up to the top. But that's what it felt like to me. It was a panic, and it was in those moments that I couldn't breathe. And then all of a sudden, I would hear the sirens, I would hear the bells, and people would come in, and just like they do on those TV shows, they would say, we got a bagger. And they would come in and they would start pumping into air back into me, and they would hook me back up to the machine. And I remember laying there thinking, I fooled them. Now they know I'm alive. Now they know. Now they know that I'm in here. Only for them to come back and try it again. I have to tell you that that's when I was really at my weakest. And I laid in that hospital bed. And again, I had no communication with anyone in this world. But there was only one person that could hear me. And I began to pray to Jesus. Something I had not done for years. And I laid in that bed. And I remembered a song that my cousin, Lisa, used to sing, and she and my Aunt Vita would sing it together. And the song was called Brand New Touch. And I laid in that bed, and I began to sing that to myself. Lord, you know I need a brand new touch. My strength from yesterday is gone. And if you give me, Lord, another touch, I'll have the strength to carry on. So I laid in that hospital bed. No one else surrounding me. No one else with me. And I prayed and asked Jesus to come back into my heart. Because I did not want to die and go to hell. And that's when things began to change in my life. It's just a matter of days later that I was able to finally breathe on my own.
Psalms 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit.
Very true.
Yep.
Very true.
So you're finally able to breathe on your own. You're finally starting to see some progress in the hospital. Finally get off the machine. Obviously, there's lots of physical therapy, bunch of stuff that you're doing in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. And continued surgeries.
Continued surgeries. You finally get to come home. We'll say that.
After I spent 124 days in the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah. Almost. Let's talk about that for a second. 124 days you spent in the hospital. And the person that hit you, which we won't say any names, but the person that hit you only spent 120 days in jail.
Yes.
So you were in the hospital longer than he was in jail.
Yes.
Yeah.
I never once ever said to me or said to God, God, why me?
Yeah.
Why me? Because I knew why me. I knew that I was running. I knew that, I had been told over and over again that I was chosen, that, the scripture says many are called, but very few are chosen, that I've been chosen to do ministry for God, that I had been picked, to be able to lead and to be able to do something in ministry. But yet I was running as far away as I could. I didn't want to deal. And so I never, ever, ever said, why did this happen to me? Because sometimes and a lot of people disagree with me, but here's kind of how I feel about it. I felt like I was in that moment where Satan was like, hey, I'm going to take her life. And God was like, you can take anything you want from her, but you're not taking her life, And I felt like I was kind of at that moment when that needed to happen. And so I never asked why. I mean, I know that I needed to be humbled enough to be able to get back to this level. So that's what happened.
Keep going.
Are you looking up scripture?
Well, I have a scripture here, but I'm going to look up another scripture.
Okay.
It was we talked about this a little bit last night, but go ahead. I'll get to you in just a minute. Go ahead. Continue.
So I never had that opportunity. I mean, I never wanted that opportunity. I've never asked, why? And now at this point in my life, I feel like I've had the opportunity to speak and to be able to go into places that I would have never had that opportunity before. I'm able to share my testimony with NFL teams. I'm able to share in prison ministries. I've been able to, I've just been very blessed for the people and the connections that I've been able to make because of this chair. So for me, this chair kind of became my ministry.
Yeah.
And being able to go forth and be able to talk to people and share my testimony where I've never would have had opportunities to do that before, ever.
Yeah.
So for some people, I can remember even being in church. And of course, after everything happened with Joe, people said it was, like I was condemned. It was, the curse. It was everything under the sun because God was punishing me. But I think it's the exact opposite. I felt like it was a blessing.
Yeah.
Because number one, I know that the last place I walked out of was a bar. But I know the next place I'm going to walk into is heaven. How awesome is that trade-off?
Pretty good.
Well,
and that's something so so in life in general, whether you go through the things that you've gone through or much lighter circumstances than what you've gone through, right? In life, we suffer, right? It's inevitable. We're going to suffer, right? In ways, different things, different times. Even as a Christian, we suffer, right? And there's actually a verse, we were talking about it last night. It's Timothy 2, 1-7 is the whole thing. But in that passage, Jesus says, join with me, Paul was telling Timothy, said, join with me in suffering like a good soldier of Christ, right? Because Paul is doing all these crazy good things from a prison cell. He's in chains, right? And he's still spreading the gospel worldwide, right? Which is crazy. But so join with me in suffering like a good soldier of Christ. Because you're going to suffer one way or another, right? Whether you're Christian, whether you're not Christian. But why not suffer with Christ, right? Because when you are with Christ, obviously the yoke is much lighter, right? And so that was kind of just reminded me, I got chills thinking about it. Your story was suffering, right? You're laying in that bed and you're suffering, right? You're literally suffering. And then all of a sudden you're just like, Jesus, please, just come back into my heart. and let me suffer with you. But it also takes me to James 1 James chapter 1. Well, I'll just find it real quick too, so I can quote it, because it's one of my favorite verses ever. I want to get this tattooed somewhere. James 1. There we go. And it's James 1:2. So consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that testing of your faith produces perseverance. Right. So between suffering with Jesus, right, and then being thankful for those sufferings, it's a perseverance of faith, right? Anyways, so that just your whole story is wrapped up in those two, not wrapped up in those two verses, but those two verses fit extremely well with your story. Anyways, my bad. Sorry to get on my little tangent, but
no, I mean, I think those are actually perfect, to be able to have that in there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's kind of what it was. I was stripped of everything except for God.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I found salvation by letting Jesus back in. And that really became the second chapter of my life. From that very moment, it was there. So I've always kind of felt like I had like a Phaedra pre-rec and then a Phaedra after-rec.
Yeah.
Because it really humbled me to appreciate the great things in life. And many of the times, that was you. It made me want to be the best mom that I could be to you and the best influence that I could be to you. And you were so amazing. You were that kid, Josh, that just loved me so much. And I think because we were separated for so long, they wouldn't let Josh into the hospital because I looked so awful. They were so convinced that I was going to die. Even after I came out of the coma, they were still so convinced that I was going to die that they didn't want Josh's last memories of seeing his mom hooked up to all those tubes and wires and all that. So they waited. They wouldn't even allow you to come in and see me for 7 weeks. For 7 weeks. And you and I were together every day. As a preschool teacher, I had you at school with me. I was with you every single day. We were never separated. I didn't drop you off at a babysitter on a regular basis. I mean, you were with me. So it was very difficult during that time when we were separated. And I'll never forget the very first time that I saw you in that hospital. After I'd been out of ICU, they put me in a step-down unit. They finally allowed you to come and see me. And I can still remember that day vividly as well, because a nurse was in there and she was like changing my IV bag or whatever. And I remember seeing you and I asked them, I was like, can I just hold him? And they said, Phaedra, you're too weak. And I said, well, just pick him up and put him on my lap. Let me just hold my baby. And they said, your legs aren't strong enough. You can't put him on your legs yet. And I just was devastated because I just wanted to hug you and just hold you and draw you into me. But they put a little chair up next to the table or next to my bed. And you leaned over and you kissed me on the cheek.
There's a picture of that somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the very first words you said to me was, Mama, I thought you were dead and nobody told me. And you were just 5 years old. You were just a baby.
Not much older than
Well, think about
Maddie,
that.
yeah.
Think about that. Because when I went into that hospital, you were about Maddie's age. And you turned 5 while I was in that hospital bed in ICU that I couldn't even see you. You were just at that same age and that time span with Maddie. So, but you and I, we always had a great relationship. And at that point forward, you kind of felt like you were the caregiver and I was the child. There were a lot of times you treated me like that as well. I just like to be able to say. But we kind of got to the point where you were tucking me into bed at night after I got home. And we would read a book, before you'd go to bed. And you would kind of tuck me in because you would be turning my lights off because I couldn't reach the light switch. And that was before we had Alexa to do everything for us. But, you would then go put yourself to bed. And that became our new role. When I needed things done, it was like we didn't have a front loader washer and dryer back then either. You would stand on my lap and you would reach into the washer and dryer and you would switch the laundry for me.
Made it happen.
You did. And we'd go to the grocery store, and that was before I had my fancy chair and couldn't reach things. And so you would stand on my lap again, and you would reach the stuff on the top shelves that I couldn't reach at the grocery store. And you and I just developed this amazingly tight, close bond.
People, when I say, because I talk about you obviously all the time, right? People, I don't think, can fathom our relationship, right? And a lot of it's because of all the things that we've gone through. I mean, that's what it is. It's not a lot of it. I mean, that's what it is. But like you just said, we developed a very close, tight relationship. You know, my survival depended on you, but also at the same time, your survival kind of also depended on me.
It's very true.
You know, and so we've been in several of those survival modes. And, you know, it's almost like, I'll put it as a military or police, right? If you get into combat with somebody, or if you're fighting people on a regular basis with somebody, you know, just in my job, you know, you put yourself in like dangerous situations with somebody, a coworker, right? Like one of my police brothers, right? Or my deputy brothers, whatever. Like, you have a different kind of relationship, right? When you're putting your life potentially on the line for another person, right? Like, it's a different kind of relationship, right? And so I would put it in that category a little bit, because your life depended on me a little bit and my life depended on you a little bit, you know. And I said a little bit, a lot, you know. But like, and so there's just the bond there that I don't like. I have a buddy right now that works at the sheriff's office. It could be 50 years from now. He could go off and do something else, and I could go off and do something else. But I guarantee you we would still have that bond, right? And so it's just that those bonds like that are almost impossible to break, you know? And so when people, sometimes they don't fathom our relationship. They just can't wrap their head around it. Well, after all the things that you and I have gone through together, that's why.
There's been a lot.
And there's been a lot, for sure. And so that's kind of maybe this is a better understanding of why we have the relationship that we do. Anyways, continue. I just wanted to explain that a little bit.
Yes. So, and I think that's a very good analogy to be able to put it together, because that's very true.
Yeah. We
have been through a lot, and over and over again, it was just you and me and the Lord. Yeah. You know, that's what it came down to. Yeah. But we were tight. And I know it's been hard for a lot of people to understand that. A lot. But we're close.
So you've kind of mentioned, you know, some stuff. Obviously you've hit an emotional and spiritual rock bottom, right? The moment of salvation and letting Jesus in. How faith was birthed, and not in triumph, but in total surrender, right? And there's a couple verses here that I could read, like Job 23:10. But he knows the way that I take when he has tested me. I will come forth as gold, right? So we've gone through that. So I was kind of get to like from the tragedy to the triumph part of this whole wreck. So obviously, you've gone through your wreck. You've kind of gone through your rehab portion. And then you're learning how to manage all this stuff and live after the fact, right? Like you said, like I'm helping you change over laundry and whatever else we're doing, grabbing stuff off the top shelf, different things. So let's go into kind of after the wreck purpose now, I guess you could say. So how did the crash kind of reroute your life towards advocacy and purpose? Let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
It changed everything.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I was more angry because, like you said earlier, with the criminal justice system, because I spent 124 days in the hospital. The man that hit me spent 120 days in jail.
Yeah.
So for me, that's when I really started fighting for advocacy when it came to impaired driving. You know, the man that hit me, and the trooper that saved that crash and worked that crash, he saved my life. And he is my true hero. He started me on that path and that journey to be able to start working with law enforcement and appreciate law enforcement. So he's truly my hero. But what happened is that when the crash took place, there was a time gap from the time that they were able to try to be saving our lives and all the victims and all the injured people on the highway versus whenever it came to getting the man that hit me's BAC drawn. So it was about 2.5 hours after the crash, and he tested at .08. And the prosecuting attorney chose not to charge him with a DUI. Instead, he was charged with second-degree assault because at that time, the legal limit for impaired driving was .10. So therefore, he was charged with second-degree assault with alcohol being a contributing factor, which is why he served 120 days.
All right, Miss Advocacy Person. How quickly does the alcohol rate drop?
It drops about, I don't know. I mean, like,
You're supposed to know
isn't
these
it
things.
supposed to be like 1 point per hour? Something like that?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Oh, you believe so, Mr. Dare Officer?
I'll teach that. I'm a DUI guy, okay? I should know these things. I do. It's a point an hour, I believe. So he was probably already falling.
He was falling. I mean, 2.5 hours afterwards.
Right. He was probably, his blood alcohol level was already falling, I'm sure. Which means he'd probably quit drinking, what? Maybe an hour before he hit you, roughly.
I don't know. It was in his car.
Potentially. I'm just guesstimating here. But if he was at a .08, 2.5 hours after, he was probably sitting, I don't know. I need a DRE here. They could probably do the math a lot better than I could. At .08, whatever. He was high.
Over
He was
0.10.
right. He would have been over 0.10. Probably
Right.
1.5, 0.15, 0.18.
0.12, maybe.
I don't know. Anyways, I'd have to get with the DRE to get that math done exactly. But still, he was definitely way over the legal limit once he hit you.
Yes.
Right.
But they just didn't charge him with that, even though they could have went back and had that DRE guy come in and be able to talk about it. They didn't.
Right.
So that's why. And I became more angry at the criminal justice system than I ever did that particular man. I mean, the one thing, I know the man's name, but I never share it. I never do. That's never been my intention, even in all the hundreds of people that I've spoke to, the thousands of schools, and I guess thousands of people, hundreds of schools maybe. I don't remember. I don't know. It's been a lot over the years, but I never share his name. I never tell it because I never wanted to make that personal attack against him as an individual, but instead of the action. And that's how I've always felt about it. I've always been very much anti-drunk driving, not anti-drunk driver. So I never wanted to attack him. It's always been the act.
Right.
So that's when I joined forces with MAD. It's what I do now with Smart Start. I'm still an advocate against alcohol and impaired driving. And that's all my life is what it's turned into. That's been my career side of it. But much more than that, it's been the ability to be able to go and to be able to share my testimony in places that I never would have been able to do that before. And to be able to even share our relationship. You know, because I can tell you this, it's not learning to sit in a wheelchair. It's not learning to go through rehab. It's not learning through physical therapy on the physical side of it and even the emotional side of it. The hardest part is being a mom in a wheelchair because I've had to watch as someone else would teach you how to ride a bike. I've had to watch as someone else would get on the Ferris wheel with you. I've had to watch as someone else would get on roller coasters with you because I couldn't do it. And that's when it's hard. And it's hard because as your mom, I have to clap and I have to cheer and I have to cheer you on and scream, "Let's go, Josh." But on the inside, it's hard. It's hard. I often thought about your wedding and wanting to have that mother-son dance. And that wasn't going to be the possibility in the traditional way that I ever expected it to be. But the great thing is, I mean, you were a great kid and you always made sure that you kept me in the forefront of your life, you know? And even when it came to everything at school, you always volunteered me for everything. I didn't even want to be volunteered. You volunteered me to chaperone school dances. And then you would come over and you'd try to dance with me and hang out with me. And I remember at one point looking at you, you were like in middle school, and I was like, Joshua, it's not cool to hang out with your mom. Go away.
And what did I say? I don't give a rip.
But I would tell you things like that. Go play with your other friends, you know? But you were always just very much devoted to me. And you always took care of me. And even when we went to Disney, do you remember when we went to Disney?
See, this is the story that I didn't want you to tell. I was trying to sit here and avoid it.
Well, I'm bringing it up.
Good Lord.
So
I think I got something in the other room I'm going to go take care of real quick.
Stop it. So I was so excited. My friend Angie was getting married. And Angie lived in Florida. And she had wanted me to come down and be one of her bridesmaids. And I was scared. I had not traveled. I had not flown. I had not done anything since being paralyzed. And I was nervous. And I was scared to take that travel. And I took Amy with me. Amy's a nurse. So therefore, she's able to kind of know how to take care of me and do all that kind of great stuff. And Angie just tried everything to talk us into being able to go. She was like, I got your dress. I got your material. I got everything. She's like, I got even a connection to be able to get you to Disney. And so she got us Disney tickets for free. And so we went. But I was so excited about being able to take you to Disney because you were a huge Disney movie person even back then. I mean, your favorite movie was Mary Poppins.
Yes.
And we wore Mary Poppins out on VHS.
Yes.
And The Music Man.
Yes. That's not a Disney movie, though.
Is it? Yes, it is.
It may be now. I don't think it was originally.
I thought it was a Disney movie.
I don't know.
Yeah, either way. Those were your kind of things, was to be able to watch that kind of stuff, and you live for that. And you were so cute because I was like, Joshua, I was so excited to be able to tell you, plan this all out. Got all excited. I was like, Joshua, if you could go anywhere in the United States, where would you want to go? And I've been building it up anyway, like Disney stuff, talk about Disney, Mickey Mouse, all that kind of stuff. And you looked at me and you said, Mama, I just want to go to Graceland. I was like, really?
Hey, I was a big Elvis fan. You know what I'm saying? I love Elvis.
7 years old, Josh. If you can go anywhere in the whole world, where do you want to go? Mama, I just want to go to Graceland. I was like, whoa. Okay, someday.
We made that happen too.
We did. But I was like, okay, well, how about Disney? And you got so excited though. And I loved the fact that Disney was so wheelchair friendly. Didn't have all these hills and valleys that we were accustomed to in middle Missouri or Middle Tennessee. But, it was flat. And I could roll around easy. And Disney had so many rides that we were able to do together. Like for the first time, we rode It's a Small World After All. We rode these roads together. And they were just so fun. And you did like this Tomorrowland thing, and it freaked you out, and it scared you to pieces and made me laugh a lot. And then one night at Disney, we were watching the fireworks, and we got you some Pop Rocks. And I was a horrible mother, but you got these Pop Rocks.
So let me set the scene for you, okay? We're literally it's like the parade, the character parade. All the characters are walking through, and there's fireworks going off behind the castle, if I remember right. And it's just like this, picture perfect moment, whatever. I got an icy and I think it was an icy. I don't even remember what it was now. And some Pop Rocks. And I'm just crunching on these Pop Rocks. And all of a sudden, I take a bag of these Pop Rocks and I turn them up, and I had Pop Rocks go up my nose. And you could hear like in my nose. And I was like, oh, freaking out.
And then you're like crying. And that makes your nose is watering. So
and they're
now
popping even more. Yeah.
And I'm the mom that is laughing so hard that I'm crying.
Yeah.
And you're crying for an entirely different reason. But
Amy, I think, was on the floor. Like, she was dying laughing because you're laughing at me when I'm in, like, pain, you know.
But was it really pain, or did it just scare you?
I mean, I don't know. You put some Pop Rocks up your nose and you tell me what's up with it. All right?
It was so fun. But we were having just the absolute best time and so many amazing laughs.
First time I'd ever seen the beach while we were there.
Happiest place on earth.
Yeah.
And we were riding all these amazing rides, and we get to this ride, and I don't think they have it anymore, but it was called Splash Mountain. And we get to this observation deck, and we're like watching the people come down, and we're getting wet just watching, and we were laughing. And I was like, Josh, you want to ride this ride? And, you know, as a kid, you're like, yeah, I want to ride it. And I said, listen, when you get to the top of that mountain, I want you to wave really, really big, and we're going to take your picture. We're going to show everybody at school how you rode Splash Mountain over the summer. And you were like, yeah, you know, because you're feeling like you were getting kind of big now and tough. You were like, I got this, you know, this big old ride. And we get over to the ride, and we get to the line, and I kiss you on the cheek, and I tell you to mind Amy, and don't forget, you get to the top of that hill, you wave really, really big so we can take your picture. And you just looked at me. You said, Mama, aren't you going to ride this ride? I said, no, baby, I can't. This one isn't wheelchair accessible, but you are, and you're going to wave really big at the top of that hill. We're going to show everybody what you did over the summer. And you just looked at me. And you said, Mama, if you can't ride that ride, I'm not going to ride it either. And at that particular moment, it didn't matter how much I coaxed you. It didn't matter how much I begged you. You just weren't going to have it. And that's how you lived your life. You were always afraid that you would have more fun than what I would have. Because you've always wanted to include me in that joy. And even to this day, you still keep that up. You know, you were so excited when you got your Jeep. And you still said, Mom, come on, you got to get in this Jeep with me. And I'm like, Josh, it comes up to my head, you know? You're like, doesn't matter. We're going to get you in there. With the top off and the doors down off, and what'd we do?
Your leg flying out the window.
My leg was flying out the door. But we went through creeks, and we went and we laughed and we talked. And I had Jeep hair, and I didn't even care. We still took that picture. But your whole life, you have always made sure that I've been blessed.
You didn't get me. I didn't cry.
Okay.
Well, got to take care of you. You've taken care of me. That's what I have to do.
Well, listen to you trying to sound all tough right now.
Listen, when you've experienced Pop Rocks up the nose, there's nothing worse than that. What was that movie, The Marine?
I knew that's where you were going to go.
I hate rock candy.
I knew that's where you were going to go.
Oh, man, so stupid.
Oh, my gracious.
Listen, when I get emotional, I make jokes to avoid from being emotional. Okay, that's what I do. Oh, man. Well, I will say, to God be the glory, right?
Amen.
Because of everything that you've gone through, we've gone through, I've gone through separately, together, we're indifferent. He's always taken care of us. He's always been faithful. And I know that I say that, but it's like, man, it's so true.
It's true.
You know?
And we've had so many wonderful, fun things that have happened. And we've been able, we've always, which, praise God, that we had this personality, because we've always been able to take things that should be somewhat traumatic to some people, and we've been able to laugh about them.
Yeah.
You know, we always have. Yeah. Remember that time that this was one of those other moments, because you were so good about helping me, that you were sleeping in and I went to go vacuum the house. And I knew, because this was how my mom brain works. I knew that if I started vacuuming, that you would get up out of bed and you would be like, oh, let me do it. Because, you know, when you're in your wheelchair and you're trying to like vacuum on the floor, you have to vacuum, roll, vacuum, roll, vacuum, roll. It takes me forever to do it. But I knew that if I woke you up, you would get up and be like, Mom, just let me do it.
So you were playing me.
Yeah, I was. And I knew that would happen. So I started to get the vacuum out. And when I did, the vacuum was kind of heavy, and I went to kind of lift it up over me. And by lifting it up over me, I literally got too top heavy in my wheelchair and flipped completely over on my back. And thud. You know, you heard the kaplunk. Yep. At that point, you come running out of your bedroom. Mom, you okay? You're okay? Okay. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm kind of mad about it at this point. And you're like, what are we going to do? Because you were too little still to pick me up and put me in my wheelchair. And I was still too weak to be able to get up back in my wheelchair. Yeah. And which is probably why I dropped the vacuum. And you're like, Mom, what are we going to do? I'm like, we're going to have to get the neighbor. We're going to have to call him over, see if he can come help us. But I'm still in my pajamas. So I need you to bring me some clothes so I can put clothes on as I'm laying on the living room floor, so that I can, you know, be dressed.
Yeah, let's just get some clothes on. Not clean the whole entire house, put makeup on, dust the top of the mantles, and vacuum and mop and do the dishes.
I did have him do all of that.
Then I had to go take a shower to make sure that I was clean and smelled appropriate. And I had to go mow the yard and take out the dogs. And
it didn't get that
go
bad.
Feed the chickens. But
I really did. I really did was like, well, and I got to have makeup on. So you got to bring my makeup. And I put my makeup on. And then I was like, I can't let him come into our house with it's dusty. And so I made you dust. And I did make you do the dishes.
And vacuum.
And I did make you finish vacuuming.
The house was spotless. The only place that wasn't spotless is where Mom was sitting on the ground because I couldn't vacuum underneath her.
I think I scooted over.
You might have.
But you were so mad at me that whenever we had the rainbow vacuum, the water vacuum back then. So when you went outside to go empty that vacuum out, you finally just went and got the neighbor because I think you were afraid it's going to make you still do even more in the house, maybe.
I'm like, you're laying on the ground or sitting on the ground, and I'm having to do all the housework just to be able to get you back in your chair.
But we had a lot of fun. I'm pretty sure that if you could have screamed and yelled at me and probably even cussed me at that point, you probably would have because you were so mad at me.
Yeah. Probably so. We've had a lot of fun, though. A lot of interesting experiences. Like the first time when we first moved to Nashville. And they're like, hey, let's go downtown. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Until I realized I have to push you up and down all these hills, like going from place to place. You know, Broadway's flat, but everywhere else is not.
That's right.
Know? I'm sucking wind, trying to push you up these hills, you know. And then you got this fancy chair, and it's been awesome ever since.
I was so good for your cardio.
Oh, man. Thank you for that.
I made your glutes look fine.
I don't have glutes. 0 glutes.
It's like, what is that old saying? You know, like it was uphill both ways. That is true in Nashville. That is true.
Yeah, kind of so. Kind of so. Yeah. I'm trying to think some other funny. We've had so many just funny stories over the years.
So many stories.
Yeah.
Just laughter and again, what could turn into tragedy, we always seem to be able to find a way to smile about it.
Well, another funny too, though, is like, obviously now that you have your fancy pool and you got your lift and it's all good and golden, but a couple years ago, she didn't have that fancy pool.
I didn't.
And I'm like, you're going swimming. Getting her in's the easy part. I just take the chair and dump her in. I'm just
you don't either.
You know, but we have a system. Like, we made it work, you know, and it was always, you know, anyways. We always figure it out. So
Do you remember, though, the first time I got this chair and you were...
you're not going to make me cry.
I'm not making you cry.
You're trying.
I wasn't even telling that story.
You're trying.
I was talking about when we went to St. Louis.
What did we do in St. Louis?
We went to go pick up Freedom. So we went to go pick up that dog.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that you realized you didn't have to push and pull me over grass.
Yeah, that's true.
And you kind of teared up at that moment because you were like, you're able to do it all by yourself. You teared up then too.
Well, the most epic with this chair, and if you've never seen this chair, like it's pretty crazy. But when we drove, well, I'd say we drove. We flew to New Hampshire to get this chair.
We had to go through training.
Had to go through training because this chair's pretty.
Pillows.
Huh?
Remember Frank would say, "Make it land on a pillow."
Oh yeah. I didn't do that. Anyways, but the first time she got in this chair, she was able to, like, there's a stand-up mode in this chair. And for the first time in however many years.
It's called balance mode.
Balance mode, whatever. First time in however many years at the time. I don't even remember what it was now. 30-something years, right? No. 20.
It was like 27 years.
Whatever. She was able to get up in balance mode and look me directly in the eye for the first time in however many years. And so, of course, we both lost. You
described it as you had big boy tears.
I had big boy tears. That's right. But it's, I don't know.
It was a pretty special moment.
It was a pretty special moment. But we've done lots of crazy, cool things. Your stories are incredible. They're an incredible testimony. We didn't even cover half of what we were going to cover on this, and that's okay because it was awesome. So let me read this little part here. Some stories don't end with healing. They begin with it. Maybe your crash was different. Maybe it wasn't on the road, but in a relationship, a diagnosis, or a quiet disappointment. But your crash can still be your calling. Your grit can still lead you to grace. Mm-hmm. So no matter what your story is out there, like, you can still get through it.
I do want to just bring up one more scripture verse, though.
Okay.
Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done and the saving of many lives. And I feel like that right there is the true example of turning tragedy into triumph.
Yeah.
Right there. That is beautiful because God is always in control. And God, you will always find his favor and his purpose. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and have been called in according to his purpose. So even though we've barely kind of touched on this and we've just kind of shared a little bit of today, but it's hard to be able to take 29 years and be able to put that in a 45-minute broadcast.
Right.
So.
Well, we're at an hour and 7.
Holy smokes. Wow. But sorry. But it's just that's what can happen. But at the end of the day, we say this all the time, at the end of the day, it's always about what Jesus can do.
Yeah.
And again, like you just said, it doesn't matter what your crash was. It doesn't have to be a physical car wreck. It could be an addiction. It can be a relationship. It can be anything in your life that has humbled you and brought you to that point. Or maybe you feel like you're getting at your weakest moment right now. Jesus is there for you. And just like he did with me, he's going to be able to pick you up and take you to whatever purpose it is that he has planned in your life.
I will say this, because God has obviously been with you throughout your whole life, right? Mm-hmm. But one thing that I admire about you probably the most is your determination, for one, right? You've never said, woe is me. You probably said it. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure you've had moments where you're like, why is this happening to me? But you've never really let that show. You've always pushed through. You've always made things happen. And I think that's also a part of me where I kind of I have a hard time with sob stories, when people just, some little thing happens and they just want to quit life, And I don't mean like on a deep level. I'm just saying like it's just, they just want to whine and complain and cry about it. And I really feel like that's part of the reason I have an issue with that, because you've never really done that. You know what I mean? You've always taken your adversities and you've pushed through. You've made it happen. You've worked and done crazy things like, somebody who would have gone through a wreck like you went through, not including all your stuff prior to the wreck, right? But you wreck and it would just absolutely crush them and break them, like, and I hate it for those people. I hate that that's how their brain works. I hate that that's how it is. And maybe it's because they didn't have God in their life or whatever the case was, but you've been able to push through that. And like I said, it's God. I mean, helping guide you through that. But at the same time, it's your character that has led you to that point as well. You're able to work through those things. Like even with your leg break that you had here a few years ago, that was a tough time, right? But like you've gotten through it and you've made things happen, and like, and just your perseverance and your determination to get through something it's mind blowing. And so I commend you for that. I want to tell you that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've always helped with that too. Like I can remember one particular time that I was like, Joshua, love me, Joshua. Will you please just go make me a sweet tea? And what'd you say to me?
You got wheels?
That's exactly what you said. You got wheels. Get in there.
Da, 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 da. I thought I put it on silent. I guess I didn't. Sorry. I guess that's our dinner bell. It's time to be done.
It's time to wrap it up.
It's time to wrap it up. But hey, listen. Like you can do it. You can get through it. I promise you. And with God, all things are possible, right? Philippians 4:13. It's a well-known verse. All things are possible through Christ Jesus, right? And so you can do it. You can get through it. Just keep going. Just keep doing it.
Just give it to God. Give it to God.
Absolutely.
And allow Him to carry you through.
Absolutely. So, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We've had a lot of love here since the last episode. We've had a bunch of love and a lot of people reaching out, and man, it's really awesome. Thank you. Y'all are the reason that we're doing this, right? It's for y'all to help reach people who need to hear this story and hear different things. That's why we love doing this so much. And thank you for, like I said, your support and just hanging out with us. I know this episode's kind of running a little longer than normal, but like you said, it's hard to fit a lot of years in an hour segment, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to pray us out?
You pray us out.
Okay.
I prayed us to begin.
Okay, that's true. All right, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to just share your word, Lord, and to talk about you and talk about you even through our life experiences. Lord, we just thank you. We love you so much. Lord, just be with us and continue to be with us through the week. And thank you for everything. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We love you, Grit fam.
Love you. Holy Grit. Nailed it.